Hello, and welcome to the web series for the team-wide Session 3. This session will cover conflict resolution. The web series is brought to you by the Minnesota Department of Human Services and the University of Minnesota's Institute on Community Integration. It was intended to be shared with you at our remaining in-person trainings. However, those were canceled because of the COVID-19 outbreak. So your training team at the University of Minnesota has divided the information into multiple sessions. This session today will be approximately 20 minutes of information. It's meant for application as a team. So what you will be missing is that opportunity to complete the exercise with others. Throughout the presentation, there will be times when the trainer will ask you to pause the video, to reflect, or to complete an activity. Listening to the information is really great, but it can never replace the rich experience of discussing what you've learned with your colleagues. So we encourage you to work with your internal colleagues in some fashion, perhaps setting up a virtual meeting to go through the information, whether that's as a whole group or small groups, or maybe pairing up with one of your coworkers. I'd like to introduce your speaker for today. It is Larry Tabrock. Larry is a person-centered thinking trainer, a person-centered coach trainer, and a person-centered mentor. Thank you and enjoy the webinar.
Thanks, Chet, and welcome everyone to this session. As indicated, we're going to be discussing conflict resolution during this particular session. And before we do that, however, we're going to do a little bit of a review on universal positive support or social strategies, excuse me. We really want to talk about 4 components of the series on positive social strategies. And those 4 components include encouraging and building relationships, empathy and cultural responsiveness, mindfulness and well-being, and organization and environment. And that's the area that we're really focusing on today. There are a number of different things that fall under this area of organization and environment. And we're going to just choose one of them, the whole issue of conflict resolution, to focus on today. Now, these 4 components can be represented in this manner, and each of the 4 circles represents a literature base that creates the context for positive social environments. Skills for building relationships and effective communication combines with person-centered thinking and function-based thinking curriculum as it relates to interactions between people. Building skills for encouraging empathy results in the ability to be more culturally responsive. And we know cultural responsiveness is its own area of work in our cohort model, both for staff and for the people we support. Mindfulness is the ability for people to learn to be in the moment, to connect with our environment and those around us. And wellness is an important issue that helps staff and the people we support be able to have an optimal quality of life. We need to feel well and work on our health and mindfulness. And that's a strategy that helps create wellness and reduce stress. The larger circle represents the work we do as a group of people to create a positive, proactive environment. This is a collective workforce and organizational work we do to make sure we build services and supports. For example, we support community mapping. We teach conflict resolution, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And we use matching to pair staff and people supported. Within this larger organizational environment, groups of people behave in ways that create a positive or negative context. And organizational behavior management and workforce issues are addressed within this area. Each of these 4 areas have a set of evidence-based practices and research supporting the work. We don't teach every evidence-based practice that can be used in organizations in our cohort model. However, we do want to be sure that there is a clear understanding that to be effective, organizations need to seek out the skills that will help create a positive environment. We're teaching organizations to identify their unique strengths and needs and to seek out training that meets those needs. This is a different way of doing training. We are teaching problem solving because we cannot possibly teach everything that every organization needs. These conceptual areas speak to ourselves as individuals. They contribute to building relationships and they contribute to collective organizational work. Therefore, this model speaks to the issues beyond interactions between two people. It is a roadmap for articulating what we need to be our best selves and how to become more aware of our environment so that we can create positive and culturally responsive communities. And they help us build environments that are positive and support complex social interactions across groups of people. So again, as I said, we're going to be looking at the issue of conflict management out of this particular area of organization and environment. Hopefully, all relationships have times of conflict, but hopefully the team meetings that you've been involved in have never looked quite like the one that you see in this picture, where people are actually aggressively acting toward each other. Unfortunately, all relationships, including teams, have difficult times and conflict types of situations. It's only natural. So how do we move from conflict to something like this, where people are working together, developing trust and building relationships? Now, I'm not suggesting that to function well as a team, we all need to sit around and meditate together or hold hands and sing Kumbaya. In fact, it's best when teams do have some conflicts and tension, as that's when change actually occurs, when there is discontent. Remember from person-centered thinking training, we only change when we are discontent. We don't make changes when we're happy with everything. But we want to have optimistic discontent, which means that we aren't actually happy with the status quo. We think there are things that need to be changed, and we're optimistic that we can make those changes for the better. Empathy, culture, building relationships, and mindfulness will help us improve our functioning as a team, but will not eliminate all conflicts. How can we get better at resolving issues when they arise? Well, there's a number of ways that we can do it. The best way to resolve conflict is by avoiding it in the first place. But again, as I already said, conflict's always going to happen. So it's important to manage the conflict by having a healthy response to conflict whenever it arises. To do that, we need to recognize and respond to other people's needs. We need to be calm and respectful and non-defensive. We need to forgive emotional responses, and we need to be willing to compromise, and we need to believe that disagreements can lead to better outcomes. Nevertheless, even when we do our best to manage the conflict, there's going to be times that you can't avoid those disagreements. Conflicts such as disagreements may occur at any moment. They're all a normal part of human interaction. The type of conflict and its severity may vary both in content and degree of seriousness. However, it is impossible to completely avoid it. When handled constructively, it can help people stand up for themselves and others. But if conflict is handled poorly, it can cause anger or hurt, divisiveness, and even more serious problems. Conflict resolution is the process by which two or more parties engaged in a disagreement reach an agreement resolving that disagreement. The ability to successfully resolve conflict depends on your ability to manage stress quickly while remaining alert and calm. By staying calm, you can accurately read and interpret verbal and nonverbal communication. You also need to be able to control your emotions and behavior. When you're in control of your emotions, you can communicate your needs without threatening or frightening or punishing others. You need to pay attention to feelings being expressed, as well as the spoken words of the people you're involved in a conversation with. You need to be aware of and respectful of differences. By avoiding disrespectful words and actions, you can almost always resolve a problem faster. When trying to resolve a conflict in a more formal manner, it's a good idea to have ground rules that the parties can agree to follow. On this page are listed a list of ground rules that can be shared with people that are attempting to resolve a conflict. Suspending your opinion is the first one, and focusing on facts whenever possible and knowing that there are two sides to every issue is something that's important for people to understand. When trying to resolve conflicts, we have to remember to listen first before expressing ourselves. We need to decide who's going to state their concerns first while others listen without responding, and then take turns and show each other respectful listening. We also need to focus on needs before solutions. We need to be willing to state what you feel you need from that situation so that when working on solutions, we can focus on the root of the conflict and get to good solutions. We also need to look for ways to achieve goals by combining ideas, starting with common ground. Find out what you agree is working or not working, and then build on those common ground areas for more constructive outcomes. We also need to embrace the ideas and differences of ideas. We need to share those ideas for our solutions to be successful. And the best solution we may find might be a combining of ideas that people have. And finally, staying calm and being respectful is especially important. Being mindful throughout the interaction is something we need to do whenever we are going through conflict resolution situations. With any type of organizational improvement, it is always good to do an assessment as to where you are before trying to resolve the problem. The conflict resolution, self and team assessment is a tool that can help you assess where you are with conflict management in your organization. Please take out the conflict resolution assessment tool from your information packet for this session. You will see that the tool can be used to rate yourself as well as your team on the 8 questions that are included in this assessment. For today's activity, we'll be focusing on just the team ratings. Scoring for this assessment is on a 3-point scale. And 1 is being never or rarely, 2 means sometimes or not consistently, and 3 are things that happen consistently. Again, if you were scoring this for yourself, the rating is on the left-hand side, the team rating is on the right-hand side, and again, for today's activity, we're going to be just focusing on the team. So at this point, I would like you to pause the presentation and think about the last 3 work days and rate your team on each of the 8 questions. If you're in a group and when everyone has completed the ratings, discuss with your team the strengths and areas that your team can grow. Please pause the webinar now and return to the webinar when you have completed this discussion. Welcome back. I hope you had a good discussion about that. In the future, your team could set up time for more team members to be involved in the activity. You would want to set a timeline in which the rating will be assessed, and you could also use this to explore personal ratings as well. If you are working in a group, pause the presentation and have a discussion with the team using the questions on this page. If you're working alone, think about the questions and share with the team members at a later time. The article listed here on this page goes into depth regarding activities for building conflict resolution skills. It contains 12 skills that you might find helpful in trying to work with your team. A couple of the skills in this particular article include topics on win-win approach to conflict resolution, Another one is creative responses to conflict, which treats conflict as a creative opportunity. And another one is regarding cooperative power, conflict resolution, which eliminates the power over to build power with others. And of course, you would remember that concept, power over versus power with, as a person-centered thinking concept that we always strongly encourage. So I would encourage you to take a look at and read through this article and use it as a guide to practice building your conflict resolution skills with your team. Additional resources for this topic and other topics can be found at the mnpsp.org website. I encourage you to check out this site and select the training material tab at the top of the page. That will bring you to this page where you can access a variety of resources. I encourage you and your team to access these resources and use them as a guide for additional exercises and training. If you're interested, there is an APBS conference in Minneapolis in 2021, and you can find more information about that at the apbs.org website. And also, if you're interested, there will be a collaborators forum in 2021. And you can also find more information at the APBS website regarding that particular event as it becomes, more information becomes available. If you have questions regarding the information shared, please contact your consultants from the University of Minnesota. On behalf of the Minnesota Department of Human Services and the University of Minnesota Institute on Community Integration, we want to thank you for your patience, understanding, and continued commitment to person-centered practices in these uncertain times. Thank you for your time and for the great work that you do. Take care and stay healthy, everyone.